Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm a little curious, Dr. Kraus, about the timeline on and the hurry you talk about in your testimony. Do I have this right that the vaccine had been approved for emergency use, if you will, in December of 2020, and then we go around into roughly was it May? Yeah, May 16th, when the license application from Pfizer came in for the license to actually sell it under on the approved basis. So during that period of time between December of 2020 and May of 2021, is my understanding correct that we had some 260 million people vaccinated? Because when President Biden stepped up in front of the nation in September, after the rushed, I'll call it rushed, approval of the Pfizer vaccine, he alludes to 80 million people who had not been vaccinated. Do those numbers sound right? I don't see them in your report. I'm just curious. The reason I'm asking is because you talk about the pressure that was put on you and eventually resulted in your resignation to hurry up and get this done. And yet, how many people had already been vaccinated?
So I don't know the exact numbers, and so I can't dispute your calculation, but certainly a large number of people had already been vaccinated because the vaccine was made available under emergency use authorization, as you say, starting in December of 2020.
The president lectures the nation in September 11th of 2021 after the forced, the hurried, the accelerated, whatever the right word for it is. What word would you use in that process that you described so clearly in your testimony? Was it rushed?
Well, so the process, as I think it was Mr. Correa or Mr. Nadler pointed out, was actually a process that thoroughly evaluated the vaccine for licensure in the end. The question obviously was more one of what did the leadership of FDA want and what was it possible to promise them. And so the leadership of FDA requested that the vaccine, that the office leadership, Dr. Gruber and I, provide them with a date by which we were certain that we could complete the review.
And you did, and it was then, they didn't accept it. They wanted it more quickly than the date that you suggested, even though the date you suggested was about half of the normal 6 months required.
That's correct. They initially actually accepted a date that was beyond that, and then they also initially accepted the September 15th date, but then they came back and said, well, actually, we would like this to be sped up even more.
Right, you suggest in your testimony that there was some use of the term mandate in those discussions.
Well, in the main discussion with Drs. Woodcock and Marks, they cited mandates along with the need to increase confidence in the vaccine, which they thought would occur if the vaccine was licensed versus merely authorized, as well as concern that there would be increased number of cases in the fall as reasons why the licensure should be sped up.
Yet that's not what really it appears that the president was concerned about. President Biden in September 11th, in his remarks, it appears that he was more concerned about the economy. He wasn't concerned about anything beyond that. He was saying, if we don't get everybody vaccinated, my economy may not be in the shape that I want it. And therefore, let's mandate it and force it upon those 80 million recalcitrant folk that don't want to take this vaccine. And that will get the economy back in shape. I don't have to worry about my reelection or whatever. I'm adding words that he didn't say. What I'm saying is he did refer to the economy. And so I'm just trying to get at what was the reason for the mandate when we already had this massive amount of people vaccinated? That's the question.
And of course, the vaccine was still available to everybody who wanted it. So I can't speculate as to what the politicians were thinking, but I do agree that if one looks at all the evidence, there was some significant circumstantial evidence that a desire to implement mandates likely had something to do with the speeding up of the review timeline.
Right. It seems to me that we have those review times for a reason, and it appears to me that they were not applied here, and there was a reason for folks to be concerned about the process. That's why I'm happy for the hearing today, and perhaps we can suggest to the folks on the other side of the aisle that looking into what actually happened makes sense. So we rebuild the trust that's necessary for this important part of our lives. I yield back.